Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Medical Fitness Podcast. I'm Jeff Young, and my co host, Dr. Thomas Hammett, will be joining in future episodes. Our podcast is brought to you by the Medicine, Rehab, and Fitness Institute and JY Kinesiology LLC, both of which are dedicated to medical fitness education and building the bridge between medicine, rehab, and fitness. You can learn more at mrfinstitute.org. The purpose of our podcast is to provide you with principle and evidence based content on all things related to exercise science, strength and conditioning, medical fitness, and building the bridge between medicine, rehab, and fitness. In this episode, I interview a friend, colleague, and industry leader, Dr. Jessica Matthews. We talk about her personal journey to fitness and wellness, health coaching, and her role as a leader in this field, the science and art of behavior coaching, why we all should adopt these coaching skills, and how it will help our practice. Behavior change is a critical and foundational component of lifestyle medicine, tips we can all incorporate to change behavior, and a plug for an amazing health coaching conference that her and her husband are about to hold in beautiful San Diego, California. If you want to be among the best, you have to learn from the best. And you're about to clearly see and hear why Jessica is an established industry leader and subject matter expert and why you should listen to what she has to say. So let's dive into our conversation. All right. I am very excited to welcome a friend and a colleague that I've known for, I think, about 5 years or so, which I'll talk about in a second. Dr. Jessica Matthews, who you're getting ready to hear, is a industry leader, wears a lot of hats. They all kind of merge together. She's a subject matter expert. And again, I'm really excited to have Dr. Jessica Matthews as a guest. Welcome, Jessica.
Aw, thank you so much, Jeff. I feel like this is just a coming home of just many wonderful conversations we've been able to have together over the years because I know we share many passions. So a delight to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And let me actually use that as a way to say that somewhere around 5 or 6 years ago, I was brought on as the founding chair of a fitness and medicine member interest group for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And when that happened, back in those days, I don't think it would be allowed now. I kind of look back at this and almost laugh a little bit. But one of my first thoughts was to create like a board of directors and an advisory board for this MIG. And so I'm not sure the ACLM would allow that at this point. But in any case, that aside, I was really excited, and the first person I got on the phone with was Dr. Cedric Bryant, who's a friend and colleague of yours. Partially because I'm a Penn State grad, and he did his PhD work at Penn State, so that's we had that in common. So in any case, he's actually the one who introduced me to you, and that's how I first got to know you. And when we first talked, for me, from my perspective, is the first thing was I almost feel like we have a brother sister relationship. Like it was just so comfortable right from the beginning. So that's kind of how I felt about it and have felt about our dynamic ever since. And I also could just tell right away, oh, I see why he connected me with Jessica because she is no joke. She is a heavy hitter, as you listeners and viewers are getting ready to see. So in any case, with that said, how about if we start with you just, and you can go into as much detail or as you want. I really mean that. I would love for the listeners and viewers to hear who you are, what your story is, and your background. And we're going to be talking a lot about health coaching today, your passion. So maybe how kind of led in your background kind of led into everything you're doing and your passion for health coaching and behavior change.
Absolutely. And I do appreciate that you acknowledge Dr. Cedric Bryant, who's the dear friend, longtime colleague of mine, and the consummate connector. And so he, much like myself, loves connecting great people with great people. And maybe we are those brothers, that brother sister relationship, because we are fellow New Yorkers. I'm a New York native, even though people know I live in San Diego now. But the New Yorker, never dies. It comes
No
out
doubt.
all the time in everything
That's
I
right.
do. That's where I think the passion comes from. But to share really my journey, and I'll keep it relatively brief. Always can share more, anyone who's interested, but really the highlight reel, if you will. The highlight reel actually starts with what would not be considered a highlight for many people. It's not some, very exciting moment. It's the fact that I grew up in a family where I witnessed firsthand, since I was a small child, the devastating effects of chronic diseases, chronic lifestyle diseases, as I would later learn. Early on, I thought that was just, genetics. That's family history, right? That's just because everyone around me, including my own mother, my grandmother, my aunts and uncles, all that side of my family, all wonderful New Yorkers, they were, I mean, really, I just saw what happened when individuals developed things like obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease. And what it led to was things, again, at such an early age, I didn't know were things that could be different. So the fact that most of my family members didn't live past the age of 60, I thought that was normal for a very long time. The fact that even those who made it to 60, because that was like considered, wow, if you made it 60, something was going good for you. But really, the last 10 plus years of your life were pretty much the quality of life was completely diminished. I'm talking amputations, blindness, renal failure, the textbook things I share now, since now I teach this as part of my work as a professor at Point Loma Nazarene University. I saw those things in real life with real life people I deeply cared about. I cared about and care about, because thankfully some of them are still with us, many of them are not. And so it set me very early on to want to, first of all, live well, because I was like, is there anything? This is me as a small child. Like, is there anything I can do that could set me on a different trajectory? Or is this sort of my fate, right? Is this just the family dynamics? I'll flash forward, which was sort of by happenstance, to be honest. How I got into my start in the field was specifically with regards to exercise. And again, I didn't grow up in a family of exercisers. We didn't, everyone didn't go out for an evening run or hike on the weekends. It just wasn't my family. But I took a job when I was in high school at this female only gym in the area I lived. And this time I'm in upstate New York, the Albany area. And it just was, the non glamorous job, cleaning toilets, washing towels, all the good stuff that we joke, all of us have done it that have been in the field at some point. But what I found there was two things. I loved moving with other people. I loved group fitness. I started taking the classes the owner would teach them. And I kind of became, like she was my mentor and I was her mentee. And she was like, you should teach these classes. And I was like, me? Now you see me now and you know me now, but I wasn't always this outgoing, maybe. And I was like, me teach the group fitness classes? But every night we would close and we would stay and she would teach me. And that's how I learned. I became a group fitness instructor. I taught exciting things like high low, step aerobics, all the cool stuff. So that gives you time frame. And that was my journey into realizing, wow, there was this opportunity to inspire and empower other people to love to move, because I love to move. And I love that other people with guidance and direction. And of course, I earned along the way credentials to ensure I knew all the things I needed to know to guide diverse people, because people don't appreciate group fitness as much. You're working with, I mean, upwards of dozens of people all at once with all different backgrounds and needs. And you're doing it to the beat of the music. I had my cassette tape in, I'm moving to the beat of the music. And that takes some knowledge and skill, to be frank. And so I always have a
Sure
love for
does.
group fitness.
Yeah.
To be frank, that's what led me on a journey to say, I love teaching. And so I said I wanted to, the consummate learner, as I know you are, I wanted to go get a degree in this area. So it led me to my undergraduate degree in physical education, teacher education, exercise science focused. Really, I learned the deep sciences, ex-phys, biomechanics, and I learned how to teach people. That combination is not always a combination many people have, but that's my journey. And so that just kept building. I kept growing in terms of my work in the realm of fitness and exercise. And that led me actually to make a cross country move to accept a position with the American Council on Exercise. Hence why Cedric Bryan has been a colleague of mine for many years. But I share that, I'll pause in that moment in the story to say that was the piece that I thought, wow, exercise has this potential first to bring people together, to have them really experience movement in a meaningful way, and it improved people's health. I saw people getting better, right? They were losing weight, they were feeling better, they were getting stronger, their mood was improved, their relationships were getting better. This is my work as a group fitness instructor and then a personal trainer. And I was like, wow, there's something to this. So then I went on to grad school to continue on that journey. But ultimately, here's the part in the story, sort of the fork in the road, and it'll lead to our conversation. I recognized that I knew so much about the physical body, right? You took anatomy, phys, one and two. I mean, name every hard science class, I took it. What I didn't really learn much about, I had like one health psychology class in my graduate program. I recognized though, as I was working with real life people, you get the whole person, their body, their minds, their spirit. And at this point, I had also gotten into teaching yoga, different modalities of, group based movement, but really had gotten into yoga. And it really prompted me to want to understand more about how to effectively, because guess what? A lot of people knew exercise was good, but not everyone was doing it. And I was like, I don't think they need more just information because I was giving them a lot, right? Here's me, all my handouts, so I'd share with them all this, great books to read, but people still weren't exercising regularly. And it led me on a journey to want to understand the behavioral aspects related to things like exercise. I'd gotten deeper into nutrition. And so, as we know, the pillars of lifestyle medicine we'll talk about. But I wanted to understand, people know these things are healthy, but yet we know the statistics, you and I, Jeff. A very small percentage of people are doing these things. I set on a quest, and this led to my doctoral studies. Why? Why? Because was I doing something wrong as a professional? Kind of. I later learned. I love just admitting I learned and grew, but it led me to want to understand the behavioral aspect. And so that took me to my doctorate in behavioral health and many of the other hats that you mentioned that I wear. But that's a very quick synopsis journey. There's other lots of detail along the way. But just to give a sense of what's not a normal trajectory, let's call it, of earning a degree in behavioral health when you come from a background as an exercise scientist for years. But it was really beneficial in better understanding how to support people in enacting and sustaining those health behavior changes we know are so powerful.
So obviously, and you know this, and I'm bet a lot of the viewers and listeners know it, the behavior piece is the billion-dollar question, right? It's the billion-dollar question that we need to figure out. And I was listening to your fairly recent podcast with Dr. Amy Bantham, who I was fortunate to have as the first guest on this show. And um, listen to you talk about which we're getting ready to talk about here in a minute in a lot more detail, but the need to connect with the client or the patient because they're the ones living their life with what they have, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where the art comes in. But before we get in, and so I guess the reason why I bring that up is because I was listening to that. I was thinking to myself, literally what you just said. Yes. And I also didn't know this. Like, I also kind of went into things with the I'm the expert, I'm the coach type attitude. I don't want to spill too many beans. We're going to get into this in a second. But before we do, I want you to, since we're going to be talking a little bit about health coaching also as it relates to all this stuff, um, and I was in a Mount Sinai Beth Israel system here in New York City from 2006 to 2016, and literally like 6 months before Mount Sinai unfortunately shut us down, we were going to bring on a health coach. And so we're in meetings about bringing on a health coach to do some integrative stuff that we want to do. And I'm like, a health coach? What's a health coach? So I didn't know what a health coach was. And I bet, and I just think a lot of people don't know what a health coach was. So I want you to clear the air and talk a little bit about the training, education, and credentialing for health and wellness coaches, since that's like what you do. And also maybe kind of merge that with together with the fact that unfortunately in any field, whether it's medicine, rehab, fitness, nutrition, you have those who is this is the tough truths that I want to talk about on my podcast a little bit. Those who are less qualified, less educated, less credentials, and those who are more. And it lies on a continuum. And it can be a bad thing for our fields because then those who are more qualified and credentialed and educated have to then differentiate themselves because the others are titling themselves. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit too.
I'd be delighted to, because as you know, many things we share are similar passions around. It's been one of mine. And I always look to, what is it that I can do in the unique areas that, I'm in, the seats I sit in, so to speak, and, the different opportunities that I've had to have influence in these different areas, positive influence to help individuals. So I always start, I use my mom as a case study all the time. So I alluded to a little bit, my mom, if someone were to look at her chart, they would say, wow, that's a complex case. And my mom knows I say this. So full disclosure, she's not gonna like hear this and go, "Why are you
There's
talking
no,
about me?"
there's
She
no
knows she's
HIPAA,
been my case
no
study
HIPAA
for
violation going on.
a long time.
Got-
So yeah, no,
Gotcha.
I won't get into all of her detailed medical history. But to say that what I recognize is that, there is there's a disconnect and there's a lack of understanding about a lot of things. So I think of my mom in the sense of my mom as, let's just say, the average client, the average person, the average patient, because I would say she's a good representation of that, who's navigating different health related issues. Again, we know the statistics. She represents many other people. She's not just in, she is an N of one because she's unique, but she represents a lot of people. What she would have no idea, to be honest, this is my litmus test all the time. She would have no clue, even though I've just shared, I've worked in the fitness industry, and I say behind the scenes, like involved in leading national, international organizations, leading credentialing and education and training. I sit on boards for all of these various entities that are the leaders in these spaces. And I always go back to my mom and go, would my mom know how to discern personal trainer A from personal trainer B or health coach A from health coach B? The answer is a hard no. I mean, and I'm in this field. And so she at least has more knowledge than the average bear. And so it leads me to what I will share is, yes, you are correct. And I have to say it. Even what I'm going to share with you excitingly about where health coaching is presently, it is a non-licensed profession, much like the exercise professions at the moment, right? They're not licensed. The challenge that comes, there's pros and cons. So I won't even open Pandora's box of talking licensure because we would need a lot more time together. But what I will share is the challenge becomes that it is difficult to discern and it's difficult to actually police, so to speak, who utilizes these terms. Example, if I were to go right now and say, I'm a physical therapist and I'm not, there would be grounds, right, from the appropriate entities to say, cease and desist doing that. You're not a licensed physical therapist. Health coaches are not licensed, and the term health coach is so widely used. And I've been a health coach for many years. I will share exciting kind of milestones of what's happened in the field, but that term health coach, gosh, if you go on to any social media site and just type health coach, it feels to me it's like the Wild West, kind of like the fitness industry has been for a really long time. Personal trainer, you're going to get everything under the sun, from someone who likes to work out to someone who has advanced degrees and actual, high quality credentials and experience, which I know you and I are always very big on. Like, you've worked with real life people. This is the whole package that we need in the kind of professional you and I are talking about as being truly integrated into a care team. It's why I got impassioned and developed the graduate program that I direct now, which is our Master's of Science in Kinesiology in Integrative Wellness at Point Loma Nazarene University. You've been one of our great guest speakers for many years. But it's one of the reasons because I said, what can I do, right? There are some low bars set. I'm just going to say the truth. And if we set the bars too low, that becomes the common denominator. And then what happens is we're not going to have exercise professionals integrated widely into care teams. We're not going to have qualified health coaches integrated widely into care teams unless we help raise the bar. So I will share health coach, the health coach I'm talking about, and the one that I know you're talking about too, when we use that term, because there's a whole debate about it. Health coach, health and wellness coach. We kind of merge the two together because I think that's a good decision. But what we're talking about is really a qualified, credentialed individual, which excitingly now we do have as of fall 2017, so not that long ago. But excitingly now we do have national board certification for health and wellness coaches. Coming from the credentialing realm in the fitness industry, I think it's exciting to have one unified credential. It means there's lots of different, kind of, my physician friends describe it like this. You can complete your residency many different places, right? They all have to meet the same standards, right? All those, different programs are held to these standards. They have to teach these competencies. But ultimately, whatever your specialty, say it's family medicine, you complete your residency wherever, and then you take one board exam to practice family medicine. What a concept. So we've done that in health coaching. And I'm proud to say I sat for the very first cohort because I'm an overachiever. You know this, and I think love this about me. But it's exciting to say we have a unified credential now with lots of great training and education programs that range from the associate's level to the bachelor's level, graduate level, private sector programs, meaning through organizations, who are, again, they're held to certain standards to be an approved training program that allows someone to sit for a board exam. They also have to at least have a minimum number of coaching sessions they complete. After they complete their training and education, kind of pass a practical skills assessment, that's what it's called, and then they can actually coach individuals, and they have to do that, all of that, before they sit for the board exam. Are there areas of opportunity for improvement? Of course. I think there's lots of things always that can be enhanced upon, but that's a huge step. And again, I use the exercise professions as a parallel lovingly. That's my home. It's been for 2+ decades. But it hasn't quite made the same progress that health coaching excitingly has. And so, how I would describe a health coach, one is someone who does hold national board certification. That's the gold standard. And we have to set a bar, and we've got to help people meet that bar. And I say then next, exceed that bar. And that's why I offer a graduate program where my graduates are coming out with, not only prepared for board certification, but they're also prepared to be board certified in lifestyle medicine. They have graduate training. They already come from different aspects of the health, fitness, wellness space. So many of them are already nurses or dietitians or aspiring MDs and PAs and PTs. And they learn all this knowledge and skills, and then they're the ones who actually integrate truly into clinical care teams. So a health coach really is someone who partners with a patient or client in their journey to health behavior change, whatever that might be. We'll use the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine as a good framework, right? And we can talk more about that momentarily. But they are someone who really partners. And it sounds so simple, yet the simplest sounding things are actually not that easy, especially when you and I make the motion of a hat. We're used to wearing the expert hat. And my goodness, clinician friends out there, we are all guilty of this, right? Fitness
Yeah.
professionals, if you're a nurse, a doctor, we are guilty because we care and we think we're fixing people and helping put them on a better path. That's very motivational interviewing language of me. But what we find is that only serves not to support health behavior change. All of the models and theories say that actually is not what will help an individual enact it. They might do it in the short term, but they likely won't do it long term. If you're in the driver's seat, so to speak, and they're kind of a backseat passenger, just like, I don't know, I'm just along for the ride, very passive, they must be an active participant. And so the coaching skill set and the understanding of the underpinnings, the science. This is actual science, guys. This is cool. It's not just like, you know, have open body language and ask an open ended question. Those are pieces, but there's so much more science and art to behavior change. And it's not an easy nut to crack, let me tell you. But I love it. Because once you understand it, you can really transform a person's life with them. And I think that's amazing.
So that's where I want to go next because when I was listening to your podcast with Dr. Amy Bantham and you spent some time with her talking about this. And again, like I said earlier on when we first started our interview, as I was listening to it, I was thinking to myself, yeah, that's exactly what happened with me. And you just said to our listeners, we're all guilty, and that's exactly what happened with me. And I started to realize, it wasn't until I started working in a clinical setting, wait a second, there's the book knowledge, but they're the ones who, and also, as you know, I have a wife who, has multiple sclerosis, so that's part of the story as well. But setting her story to the side and just being in a clinical setting, and people just they don't conveniently present many times with just one condition, so there might be multiple comorbidities and multiple things that's causing joint pain in different areas of the body. And that's when I started to realize, wait a second, there's the book knowledge, but they're the ones who are living with it. And the more I just started talking to them and listening to them and realizing that they need to play a role in what I'm doing. Now, I hadn't learned anything about the whole motivational interviewing side, but in any case, with that said, let me now switch back over to you. And you talked about the underpinnings, so let's talk about that a little bit, and really just talk about what you did with Amy and that the science and the art and where the art comes in and anything you have to say on that topic.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate it. And the reason I always lead by saying I'm guilty too is, first of all, I hope that like alleviates anyone else from feeling like
Yes.
no blame and shame. Very also coaching esque of me. It's a recognition, and I can use myself. as a person to speak to it. Again, every listener will have to, do some good self reflection and have awareness. But I will say lovingly, the way we are trained. So I say, what, me as an exercise physiologist, whether someone's a nurse, a physician, et cetera, we're all kind of trained with that expert approach you were just alluding to. And what I like to share, because it's actually true, and once you say it, you're like, duh. But the
Yeah.
person, you mentioned all those great patients you had the privilege of working with, they live in their bodies and their minds, their spirit, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They know more than you will ever know about them. That's the truth. Now don't get me wrong, because people then think I'm saying now a polar opposite swing to just like, I've actually had this question from great clinician colleagues of mine. Wait, am I saying now, because you hear often in coaching, the patient or the client is the expert in their own lives? And somehow that's been translated to now I have no expertise, right? I didn't earn multiple degrees, hold a million credentials. I have nothing to offer. And that's not true. That's all or nothing thinking. It's a common cognitive distortion. I won't get into my behavioral realm, but just to share, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is what we often don't leverage is precisely what you were alluding to, which is, wow, we should ask people more about themselves before we just do. And again, I'm going to use my mother as an example. Before we use things and just go, oh, she comes in, XYZ, she has type 2 diabetes. And they would just say, she's a diabetic. I'll also share, I'm very cognizant of person first language. That's my mom. My mom has diabetes. She's not diabetes. We don't say that.
Yes.
We don't say a person is cancer. So person first language, I don't think is semantics at all. Because again, I lived with a human being who every time she went to receive care, because she was trying to live well, she wanted to be better. No one wants, I don't think, to live in a state of being unwell, but they don't know often what to do. And then when you're labeled as X disease, X condition, and you just come in and you're one of many, right? Oh, you have this, here it is. And you haven't even gotten to know the amazing human being in front of you and the uniqueness to them. And you mentioned things like then comorbidities and other things that make for the whole human experience is complex to say the least. I haven't even gone into lots of parts of my story, but all that to say, we must take that into account. I'm not saying you don't have knowledge and expertise and lots of training in whatever professional role you have, but the people you serve actually know a lot too. And if you actually start to appreciate that, you can't just think it in theory, you have to believe it in your heart. Because I watch as I train other coaches, I train clinicians all the time. And they'll go, yep, Jessica, heard it, got it, move on to the next topic, right? I want to get to the skills. And I go, but you don't really feel it yet. And if you're going to walk in a room with a patient and you're still going to treat them like they're diabetic X, and here's the thing I'm going to do, I already know the answers, the ship is sunk before it's even left the port. I mean, that's the truth. And I go,
True.
wow, what a missed opportunity. And how unfortunate for the patient who came seeking help. And
Yes.
how unfortunate for the clinician, whoever, whatever hat they're wearing. I'm just using clinician broadly to encompass us all. How unfortunate for the clinician who actually cares and wants to help, but they're not pulling the right tools from their tool belt. They might not actually have been equipped yet with the right tools. So the underpinnings you alluded to, I'll just talk briefly because this could be a very long conversation. But if we look to behavioral science, there are many models and theories of health behavior change. There's lots of understanding. Now, humans are complex, don't get me wrong. I've signed up to do a really complex thing that keeps me interested and on my toes 24/7, which you know me, I love this. But it's complex. It's not simple. Things sound simple, but I say they're not easy when you translate them into real life with real life humans navigating the complexities of being human, right? I mean, we can get into social determinants of health and how that layers. I mean, there's so many facets to this. But to say we do have many models and theories we can look to help provide some guidance. And I'll just highlight, for example, one in particular called self determination theory, which basically says we have three psychological needs as human beings: the need for autonomy, we want to feel in control in our lives; the need for competence, we want to feel like we actually sort of know something and we've got it kind of together; and relatedness, we want to feel connected. And I use that particular theory just to highlight. There's many more. It's not like it's the only one. But what you'll see across all models and theories is this common thread of autonomy. It's really big. And when you were describing what you and I lovingly, we can just share because we're, brother sister relationship. We lovingly didn't know this for a while. And so we were coming in like, gosh, I got all the info for you. I'm going to help you. I'm so excited. Let me just information you to death. And I didn't honor a person's autonomy. Tell me more about your journey. Tell me more about your day to day life. Let's together partner with the things I know and the things you know about you. And let's arrive at actually with choice. Because guess what? Becoming, say, more physically active, as you know, Jeff, there's lots of ways to start doing that. That's cool. Because we know if someone gains momentum, it's like the law of inertia, right? It's like once it's in motion, it can stay in motion. And so I think what's that one step that's just going to get someone with a little momentum? But I highlight that as just one example of the theoretical underpinnings, the science that informs then the skill set you were alluding to. Things like motivational interviewing, other coaching, kind of approaches we use. But just to give context, this isn't just something, randomly out of thin air. This has a deep evidence base, which you and I, as evidence-based practitioners, we love a good evidence base.
That's right. And we could talk about this for the longest time because when I think about it, it probably wasn't till I was more than a decade into my career that I really started to realize this autonomy and actually the three uh, pillars that you just mentioned. And um, and then like with anything, I started to feel guilty in the sense of, why wasn't I doing this before? I wish I learned this earlier, etc. But I still hadn't ever heard about health coaching or motivational interviewing literally until probably about 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm closing in on, I'm like 28 years into my career. And it was like 24 years into my career or 25 when I started learning about motivational interviewing. And I understand that it's a tool in the toolbox and that there are many other tools in the toolbox. Um, but yeah, in any case, we could talk about this forever because it's just kind of my way of saying that you know, there's a lot of tools in the toolbox, but ultimately it comes down to that connection and the autonomy. If you really want to get them to get started, and it isn't just about blasting them with information, which so many of us are guilty of doing. So hopefully we'll have a lot of listeners and viewers with this one, and they'll do some introspect and realize, yeah, you know what? That does apply to me and start motivation. It's interesting how we need to change um not, I shouldn't word it like that, but behavioral change needs to happen with those who aren't exercising, but behavioral change needs to happen with all of us too. Like across the board, we all need to change our behavior in order for to make this to work from a public health standpoint.
Absolutely. There's so many things you said. Well, you said
Ironic.
it so eloquently and succinctly that I don't want to add too much more, but I just have to highlight because there's a couple things. And I know we won't do deep dive into motivational interviewing. And many people at some point, the cool news I'll just share is at any point you can learn more about this. So
Yes.
I share that with the listeners to say, wherever you are in your journey as a professional, whether you're a couple years in, couple decades in, the cool news is this is something you can learn. And because if you're decades in, you really care about people, which is to me the marker of a great human being and a great professional. And the cool thing is you can always continue to hone and refine your craft. And this aspect I'll just share on motivational interviewing. So many people get into the skills of motivational interviewing, open-ended questions, reflective listening, etc. But really, if you talk to the founders of the creators of motivational interviewing, Bill Miller and Stephen Rolnick, you'll find that actually the spirit of motivational interviewing, the way in which I call it meet people, not meet them for the first time, but meet them every time we show up to do whatever it is we do with them, with whatever professional hat we wear. It's the way we are with people. That's the essence of great coaching. We call it a coaching presence. MI refers to it as the motivational interviewing spirit. But that takes, I mean, it takes exactly what you said. It takes self reflection, it takes awareness, it takes change on our part to say, there could be a different way by which to go about working with people. And I'm going to add this because I work in a clinical context, which is helpful for maybe some of the listeners to know. When I hear, because I teach again a lot of different audiences this information, different professionals, and they go, all this sounds really great. I don't have 30 minutes. I don't have 60 minutes or 90 minutes to talk to someone. I go, you can do a lot in 5 minutes because we do it all the time in clinical practice. Sometimes we've got 5 minutes, 15 minutes, But if you have the right skill set and the right way in which you see and truly see and appreciate, people can change. No matter what their circumstance, you've got to believe in your heart. I'm soapboxing for a moment, but you got to believe in your heart people can change, even amidst the many challenges they face. If you don't actually believe that, you just hear it and say, got it. But if you don't believe it and you meet people without that belief, you go, wow, this patient, look at his or her chart. Wow, this is too complex. Then again, game over before it's even gotten started.
Exactly right. It's exactly right. And, you know, so uh, I want to switch to another subject in a second, but I want to just say before we do that I collaborate with two people who I'm not sure if, well, Sheila Pobois, who's the, I know you know her, and Thomas Hammett, who I mentioned to you before, and we co-presented at the ACLM conference in the LM 2022 in Orlando. And what you just mentioned is something that I just feel like they're both really, really good at. And I'm just so fortunate to have met you and to have met them and other people through the ACLM and other organizations and have them as part of my circle now because these are all, you know, you mentioned that, or at least alluded to, it's a skill, and that, you know, and it actually is. We need to want that spirit of connection, but then there's the we need experience, and it's a skill that you have to learn. But yeah, there's just so many. I'm not going to just point fingers at clinicians. It's just across the board that there's so many people who just don't do this, and they just um, they actually don't realize it, but they're feeding into the problem of patients becoming their condition and feeling like there's no hope when we can give them hope. So yeah, extremely well said. Uh, wish I could talk to you about it for the next hour, but let's just switch. I do want the listeners and viewers to get an understanding of what coaching can look like in a clinical setting. Because again, back in 2015, right before Mount Sinai shut us down, when it was the first time I had ever heard of a health coach, and I just wondered to myself, what are they going to take over what I'm doing? Like, what is this? How are we going to work together? Like, what? How? And then I never really got to see how it works. So, if you can just give some insight as to what this means and what it looks like in a clinical setting. By the way, most people looking for the services of a fitness professional are really just looking for information on how to get started on the right path, not to pay for training sessions every week for months or years on end. For the 60 to 70% of people with chronic disease and or joint pain, they're also looking for someone who can help them develop a clinically safe, individualized exercise program that takes their conditions into consideration. If you're interested in getting yourself, or for clinicians, your patients started on a safe, cost-friendly medical fitness program, you can find more information about the virtual services we offer at mrfinstitute.org/services. We staff only degreed kinesiologists and exercise physiologists and will work with your healthcare providers in the design of your exercise program. For the clinicians listening in, you can add this virtual service as a reduced cost option for your patients. Check out our website and send us an email, and we'll give you the details about this unique and much needed service.
Absolutely. And it can look so many different ways, right? Just like we think, there's many different practice settings. So I'll speak from the lens of the setting that I'm in is a large academic health system. I'm at UC San Diego Health. And actually, what led me there was in intentionally choosing a doctoral program. Remember, I said the normal linear path for me would have been get a PhD in exercise physiology. Kind of, that just makes logical sense. I did like a hard left and was just like, I'm going to go learn behavioral health. And I chose a program that required a clinical rotation because I wanted to learn what I refer to lovingly often as the other side of the fence, because I had many years at that point, almost 2 decades of experience in the field, but not in a clinical realm. And so I wanted to learn the things I didn't know because so often on both sides, it goes both directions. People who have clinical experience that maybe, let's say, clinician who doesn't really understand the fitness industry and exercise professions, and then
Right.
cuts the other way, exercise professionals who don't understand really what happens in a clinical context. You're unique, and one of the reasons among many we hit it off is you got it because you had experience and understanding on both sides. I wanted to make sure I understood both sides because I wanted to bring what exactly was about to happen at Mount Sinai. Unfortunately, didn't, but integrate health coaching. That was the focus for my internship in my doctoral program, right? The clinical time I spent there. But from the onset, they said to me, we'll take you on as an intern, but you have to agree to stay. Because to make system change, it takes a long time. And so I kind of had to make a big decision. I said, okay, I'm in. Like, let's do this. So what it can look like, again, our system is, one of many. But for us, it actually looks a few different ways. So we have, again, we've set the standard for who is the health coach. Because what I realized when I started, just for timeline, there was no board certification. There were other certifications out there, and I held them as a health coach. I had multiple trainings and credentials, but there wasn't that unified credential. And I will share, it led to a lot of my early days was just trying to explain to the system. So I'm giving insight for people who maybe say, I want to bring health coaching in, or I'm a health coach and I want to kind of break through, because I get a lot of those emails. The challenge often is doing what we just did, is to explain who is a health coach and who's the kind of health coach I'm talking about for our system. Because ours are at a minimum bachelor's level, but actually all of ours are master's trained professionals. Many do already have clinical backgrounds. It's not a requisite, but it's strongly, we found that that tends to fit our team better. But of course, we provide, training and educate. You can learn things like an EMR and other stuff. But that is helpful to have a clinical background. And they are individuals who do hold national board certification. We found that's the winning combination to be a true active member, equal member of a care team, along with registered dietitians and nurses and physicians and physical therapists, etc. And so for us, what it looks like is a few different kind of offerings of coaching. I'll share one really exciting piece. We started building coaching. I'm technically in our Centers for Integrative Health, which has a couple different arms to it, and it rolls up to family medicine. That's sort of the house we live in, so to speak.
Okay.
Our intention is we're actually intentionally kind of everywhere. We're not just a brick and mortar, one building is the Centers for Integrative Health. We're intentionally designed to basically, kind of we say in coaching, meet people where they are. Literally, we meet our patients wherever they are. So we work across all of our primary care clinics. We work across internal medicine. We collaborate with a lot of different people, including now population health, which is one of the things I'm most proud of, is forging a partnership within our system to say, with what population health is doing, right? The health of the whole system, all the people in it. We've brought coaching services into population health. And here's what's really cool. I won't spill all the geeky data, but actually the individuals who receive coaching, two key metrics we looked at, blood pressure and A1C, because the system is really interested in those things, because extrapolate that, those things, if not controlled, have ramifications. I talked about that in seeing it in my family, and it costs a lot of money. Let's just talk dollars and cents for a second. The people who receive coaching, our patients, had improvements in those two areas more so than other interventions being offered system wide.
Wow.
I mean,
Amazing.
I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but it was like, now I have data, because I do research too. So I love good objective data to go, it's not just my theory. And we have obviously a growing, continually growing evidence base. Since you mentioned ACLM, the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine, AJLM, has great compendium that was done in 2017, and then an addendum in 2019, kind of synthesizing the health and wellness coaching literature. There'll be more great papers. They're coming out literally by the minute. But all that to say, it's powerful. So what it can look like, collaborating with other aspects within your system. If you're in a big system like I am, it could look like, bringing in a coach who, I'll just share, our coaches are physicians directly refer to our coaches. That is built into our model. Coaching is not the standalone service. We do offer some, direct cash pay, for individuals who, without having to go through a physician, could elect to receive coaching as part of what the centers offer broadly to the public. Someone who might not actually, be covered at UC San Diego Health. But really, most 99% of our coaching at the moment is done through physician referral. And that's really exciting. It means our physicians understand the value. It means that we really have a true integrated team that's looking at all facets and recognizing. And we do things like exercises medicine. We ask those PAVS questions. But we did one thing, Jeff, that I think you'll appreciate. We added a third question. And the third one was, would you like to speak, in our case, with a health coach, many of which do have backgrounds in exercise science and kinesiology as well. Would you like to speak with a health coach? around your physical activity, whether you're meeting the minimum, as we know, standards for physical activity or not. Maybe you want to just see how you could take things to another level. We
Yeah.
built something recently that will share one exciting bit. We're doing the same thing. It's just launching. This has been wonderful work supported by the Ardmore Institute of Health, which I am forever grateful for. Dr. Ron Stout is phenomenal, and Ardmore Institute is fantastic. And they've supported us replicating kind of our EIM process, but doing it around food as medicine. So again, we've developed using validated measures, our own brief 4-question screening around kind of a quick assessment of someone's current dietary patterns. And the 5th question is, would you like to speak with a health coach around your nutrition? And these are ways to, and it's built in. I mean, we've automated this process to make it so seamless for the clinician, meaningful for the patient, and getting them connected, that final piece to the person. And then guess what happens? It's a feedback loop. Our coaches are part of the team. So they're putting notes in, right? They're charting, they're ensuring all members know what's happening at any given moment with each individual patient. That to me is it's a little utopia. It's not perfect, but it's a little utopia to say that's how it should be though. And
Yeah.
when it is that way, wow, people really benefit. And now we have the data to say, yeah, they really do benefit. Their health improves.
Yeah. So needless to say, I hope that this just becomes more and more part of the model and the system, because it's pretty obviously needed. So yeah, I hope that's the case. Um, Three other things, if we have the time, that I would just want to cover. One is something that some major thing that you have going on that I want you to plug, but we're going to save that for last, and also some tips for helping people change their behavior. But before we get to that one, um, another thing that you talked about with Amy Bantham that you and I have in common is the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and the pillars of lifestyle medicine, and the importance of behavior change, and where it fits within that, and stress, being managing stress, that is, being one of the pillars of lifestyle medicine. So you're on the board of directors for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. You talked about having a foot here or a foot there. You have about 20 feet. And so you have a foot in this and a foot in that and a foot in that. I think I have about 10 or 11 feet, but you have about 20 feet. So in any case, if you could talk a little bit about that, and behavior change within under the umbrella of as a pillar of lifestyle medicine.
I'd love to do that because it's been such a privilege. And of course, we connected because we were both a part of the ACLM community, which, if everyone is not familiar with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, you need to become familiar. It is, I mean, when I arrived to the very first conference I went to, I was like these are my people. Like they get it. I was doing all of these, people would think kind of wacky things like developing a grad program teaching things like lifestyle medicine and mind body medicine and coaching and behavior change models and theories. And I was like, wow, other people get this. And so just a plug to ACLM, not just because I'm on the board now, which I'm very privileged to be on the board, but to say it's a real special community. But really, the thing I would highlight, which has been exciting for me, and in mentioning that fact that I do serve on the board, interestingly, I'm one of only, I think maybe there's one other person on the board who's not a physician. So this is it's kind of cool in the sense of, wow, first of all, I have amazing physician colleagues, but it's interesting because I bring just another perspective because I am
Good
actually
deal.
not a physician, but I get to work with really great ones all the time in many capacities. But what I've seen is the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine that you and I know, right? Physical activity, exercise, stress, management, mitigation, healthful diet that is plant centered, not plant exclusive. So I always like to make that clear. It's not a vegan diet, but it means you should eat lots of plants because they're really good for you. Obviously, restorative, restful sleep, social connection, which we touched on. That is so huge. And I mean, gosh, I teach a whole class that dives really deep into that. And then obviously the mitigation or abstinence from risky substances like tobacco and alcohol. And all that being said, to me, behavior change, if we were like to make a beautiful graphic, which would not be something I would be skilled in, but if I were to make one, behavior change is the foundation. All the pillars come up. It's like when you build a house, the foundation is behavior change. It's the science and the skills, right? The science and the art, as I often refer to it. And the pillars stem up from it because I always joke, but it's kind of true. Exercise isn't medicine, food isn't medicine, gratitude isn't medicine. Everything we say, these are these phrases now, and I love it. but they're not medicine. People don't take the medicine and don't take it consistently, which you know intimately. So to me, behavior change is the foundation of all of those pillars. And it's why I was excited for the 2021 Lifestyle Medicine Conference. I co-presented with Dr. Jasmine Sardana, who's a DO. And we loved that combination intentionally because we wanted to bring the perspective of a physician along with a health coach, someone with training in behavioral medicine, to really explain how does this translate into practice, right? We can talk theory, science all day long. We need a little bit of that, but then we need to know how to translate it. So I would just say, to me, and I've done lots of work with ACLM in a lot of capacities, many of which some people don't even know about, but I have for a long time led that part of the ACLM ABLM board review course for lifestyle medicine. Those who go on to earn, board certification in that area. I have led the module on behavior change because it's so vital. So it is the foundation to me of all of the pillars.
Yeah. And at the very end, well, actually, let's move into your 3 tips for helping people change their behavior. But you know what? Or actually, you can give as many tips as you want, but maybe you can include within that. Um, how would you suggest, say, someone like me, if I didn't know, like, how would I start to learn about this stuff, and then start being able to include it as part of my skill set? So, some tips for helping people change their behavior, and then include that as a bonus tip, maybe as well.
Be delighted to do that because that's the way to actually translate it, right? I can give these tips and then there's always more learning. And great professionals are the consummate learners. So we're always intrigued and we always want to, because we care about people. We want to get better at what it is that we do. So the tips I would offer, I actually just kind of reiterate a few things we just organically covered while we were chatting together, which is you really must embody this spirit and you have to believe it. Kind of two things. People are whole. A couple. I'm going to layer a few. People are whole, meaning they're not broken, even though they're navigating a condition, disease, disorder, or a multitude of them. They're not broken. So the hope you mentioned before, I don't think that's light, fluffy stuff. I actually think that's everything. So people are whole.
Everything.
People are resourceful, meaning people can actually get they can get crafty in navigating really challenging things when equipped and empowered to do so. People are whole, resourceful, and they're capable of change. You must believe this, not just in your mind, in your being. And that's how you have to meet every patient, every client you serve. And if one day you don't do that, you will notice if you reflect, the interaction will be different. And likely the outcome of that encounter will be different. So you have to believe this wholeheartedly. I talk a little bit, I did a TED talk in 2019, and I talked a little bit about this because it's really essential. So you have to see people that way. It's really also important to recognize, in building off that, the expertise we talked about that other people bring. Bring both your expertise together because then you have a winning combination. Your
Yes.
knowledge as a professional, clinician, your knowledge of that patient or client, their lived experiences. When you have those two things, wow, you can really do a lot. And then the last thing I'll share, which will build into then, kind of how do I keep going further? Because we don't have enough time. We can talk forever, which we always do, but we don't have enough time. But to say, then really get curious, very coaching esque of me to say that, but to get curious about the actual science of behavior change, right? Like maybe dive in, well, open some journals, read some articles. That'd be really great. A skill set every professional should have. That's why I teach my grad students evidence based practice, research methods. Whether or not they ever get into research doesn't matter. You should know how to discern the scientific literature. It's very
That's right.
important. And I know you're a consummate professional in this regard of like, wow, we should really understand what it is we're talking about and reading. But dive in to the science and also be open, beginner's mind, very mindfulness teacher of me. Been teaching yoga for almost 2 decades, but also have a beginner's mind. Yes, I've been insert profession for X number of years, decades, etc. But this whole skill set of coaching is new to me, right? Coaching around health behavior change and be curious about learning more. So how do you learn more? Sure, reading papers, journals, that's helpful to understand the science, the theories. There's great textbooks. There's a whole Rippy series of textbooks in lifestyle medicine, including a little teaser, one to come out that will focus on specifically health behavior change. But I would say also, other learning opportunities, things like conferences. I know you and I have had the privilege and pleasure. We spent time together at like the ACLM conference, for example, where there's often sessions. And again, sessions that are giving us some science, but more are focused on translating the science into practice, which is my sweet spot. That's what I live for. And so it leads me also excitingly to another conference I'll just put out there is my husband and I have co-created a conference, the Health and Wellbeing Coaching Conference, which is not limited to just coaches. It's for practicing coaches, aspiring coaches, and all clinicians and professionals who want to learn more about exactly what we're talking about. Health behavior change, coaching skill sets, how it applies in the context and lens of lifestyle medicine. This is something that benefits everyone. And that's what I love is I don't just speak to one audience. What I'm sharing actually applies to all of us who work with real life humans committed to helping empower them to improve their health and well-being.
So, plug your conference a little bit more, please. I want to know the name, where, when, because I know you've put a lot of time and effort and heartfelt effort into this. So, yeah, so where, when, anything you want to say about plugging your conference.
Well, maybe you're going to just make a trip out to lovely sunny San Diego, California. That I feel like already makes it not a hard sell, teasing, but it's our backyard.
Right?
So we
Right?
are having it in San Diego. It's this June, June 17th and 18th. And it is the title, The Health and Wellbeing Coaching Conference. Again, open to all professionals passionate about learning more about health behavior change. Because that's who, I mean, we have amazing speakers, leaders in these spaces across health coaching, lifestyle medicine. We have physicians, we have psychiatrists, we have health coaches, health educators. We have all these great perspectives that are coming together to talk about again that foundation of where health behavior change actually stems from, right? Those pillars of lifestyle medicine, they share a foundation, which is the science and the art of supporting people in the process of change. And so, yes, we have poured a lot of love, energy, financial resources, because I will share, and it's, I'm not trying to be holier than thou, but we determined early on we will take no sponsors for this event. Very uncommon. I mean, it's completely unheard of, to be frank, in
Yeah.
the realm of conferences, but we wanted to ensure it was an objective, unbiased event. It's not pay to play. It's not who has the most cash. We're just two human beings passionate about what we do with the opportunity to bring people together, to cultivate true community, to do things like have shared meals. I mean, we're catering full meal. Like we're doing this. It's like part conference, part wedding, big party
Yeah.
celebration.
Sounds like it.
But we feel like that's the way a professional conference should be. It should be this opportunity for people to come together to learn clearly, first and foremost, but then practice what we preach, so to speak. So to have guided, exercise classes as part of the conference, guided mindfulness practices as part of the conference, to have those shared meals together, plant forward. Again, that doesn't mean plant exclusive or vegan, but plant forward meals that are nutritious and nourishing. This is what makes us actually great practitioners in whatever it is that we do. So we're really excited about it. And part of it is also serving the greater good. So we won't take sponsorship money to fund the event. We will self fund it, which is what we're doing. But what we are accepting are scholarships from organizations that help kind of those residencies we talked about. They're offering, and we've had great support from some really wonderful training and education programs for coaches who say for someone who wants to learn more, but maybe financially is constrained, they have the ability, and we've already received many great donations of scholarships, full rides for those who say, I want to dive deeper into learning more about coaching and developing this skill set and this knowledge base. And also, we've established a nonprofit and have had some wonderful support to be able to integrate, you'll love this, integrate coaches into communities that historically have been underserved and would not have access to a professional like a well qualified health coach that we define together today. So our nonprofit will support that work as well. So we think it's pretty rad. I mean, I'm biased. I have
Yeah.
to, it's like the researcher in me has to disclose my biases. I co-created this, but my husband and I are doing it together without any outside industry influence because that's how you keep things objective. And I think our professions have all been yearning for this space to come together. And every session centers around this theme of health behavior change because we all, to be honest, whether you're a coach or not, we all could benefit from learning more.
That's right. And so, as we wrap this up, we've been talking for somewhere around an hour, and I really hope that the listeners and viewers can see in just 1 hour how passionate Jessica is, um, how experienced she is, what she brings to the table, and so yeah, I hope that you will consider, more than consider, actually go to this conference. And I'll also say that the reason why I met you, and part of the reason why I'm doing some of the things that I'm doing is because I just think it's important to go to conferences. And this is obviously you have to pick the right ones, and this is an example of one of the right ones. But if it wasn't for uh getting involved with the ACLM conferences and NSCA and ACSM and stuff like that, I wouldn't know so much of what I know now because of learning from other people. And uh moving forward in your career. So it's just a great way to network as well. Um, along with that. So yeah, thank you so much for such an amazing conversation. Before we close, how can our viewers or listeners, follow you? Like what's the best way to follow you on social media, or, get to know you through whatever your channels are?
Well, I'd be so remiss if I talked about the importance of social connection, right? We talked about it from the theories of behavior change to one of the core pillars of lifestyle medicine. I love staying connected, and that, thank goodness, I love being connected because that's how I get to spend, to your point, great time with people like you. Met so many other wonderful people. So I would love to be connected, and I joke with my students. I try to be hip and trendy, sort of not, but I pretend I am. But I am on social media. I'm out there, everyone. Would love to be connected. Things like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram are kind of my main spaces. At Dr. Jess Matthews across all of them. So try to make it nice and easy. But please, at Dr. Jess Matthews, would love to connect, would love to keep having these kinds of conversations. The invitation to be a part of this show, to be a part of the movement you've been leading, and I've been so fortunate to be able to partner with you on in various parts of that journey. And the cool news is the work we still have to do together, because
Yes.
we need all of us. And so I love that we're ending with this aspect of connecting, because the only way real change is going to happen is if we band together. Because yes,
Yeah.
we're each individually passionate and knowledgeable and skilled, but we're only one person, each of us. But when we get together and then we keep growing and we do things like step into leadership roles, I know you did that with the MIG you mentioned that you were the founding chair of, how we first connected. I did that as founding chair for the Health and Wellness Coaches Group for ACLM, which has now, I've stepped out of leadership, but continues to flourish. These are the opportunities. And I would say a little call to action for some of us. There's great leaders out there, and we need more of us, just our voices, our passion, our expertise. So let's band together and let's stay connected. And let's do that on social is a great way to do it.
That's exactly right. Amy Bantham said this when I talked to her. Mike Stack, who was two podcasts ago, said the exact same thing. And I'm sure since the people in my circle all feel the same way, this is going to be a common theme. So yes, for the listeners, I hope this is a call to action, and we need to band together. So follow Jessica, um, and attend her conference. And thanks so much, Jessica. And this is not a one-off. You will be a guest again. So have a great rest of your day, and we will be talking very soon.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Truly a pleasure. I would love that invitation. I'll keep it in mind that I'm coming back sometime soon and we'll keep geeking out together again. But truly a delight today.
Sounds great. I hope you enjoyed listening to this conversation and all the great information Dr. Matthews provided. Please go to mrfinstitute.org and our YouTube channel at the Medical Fitness Podcast for information on how to learn more about the education we offer and to stay current with our podcast series. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.